What is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, kind of crazy, we're back on the 404SX. It's been a long time since I've done a video about this because of the introduction of the Mark II, but it feels really nice to be doing videos on this again. Really classic SP vids vibes for this video. So for this video, I'm going to do 10 must-know hacks for the SP404SX or A. The SX and the A are exactly the same, guys, so these tips will work on both of these. They'll probably work on some of the legacy models as well. It's up to you guys to go and try these and see if they do. They're super handy. Okay, so the first hack that I'm going to do here is getting a drum loop from Resample and putting it into a pattern. This is super handy if you want a looser feel, because the pattern area, the pattern sequencer, can be quite kind of robotic. So let's go ahead and resample a drum loop. And I'm going to do this to pad 12. And if we hit the time BPM, you could see there it originally said 158, but if I go into time BPM and use the third dial along, you can change that to show you what half the time is. So it's showing me that it's 78 beats per minute. So that sounds about right. That's kind of the area which I'm always finger drumming around anyway. So 78 BPM. Now let's go into pattern mode and let's do a new pattern. And we're going to set that to 2 bars. Let's do quantize of 1/8. And for the time, we're going to do 78. Sorry, I'm having to remember which dials do which on this device because I've not used it in such a long time. So let's get to 78. Will it let me go to 78? There we go. Okay, now, technically, I should be able to just record this drum loop into the pattern. Okay, so I've recorded that in, and one thing to note is that make sure that you have gate on for the drum loop that you're using and hold it down, because if you have it without gate on loop, it does a weird thing in the pattern mode where it cuts it off when the new loop starts. So make sure it's in gate and use quantize. I used 8. You can hear it's not exactly perfect because I'm kind of rushing through this to show you in the video. But if you record that into the pattern, you may have to tweak it a little bit. But hopefully you can hear here that I've managed to get a resampled drum loop into the pattern relatively well without too much effort. So if you want that less quantized feel, this is a great way to do this. And then you can go ahead and put your chops over the top. So that's a really cool hack. You don't have to program the drums into the pattern mode in order to get the drums in there. You can make a resampled loop and then record that in instead. Okay, the next tip that I'm going to show you is an MFX Set-up tip. This is a great tip for live performance. If you've got a beat and you want to do effects on the fly, but you want to make sure that the effects are right when you come to them, you don't want to press the effect and then have to do all the changing for it. So what you can actually do, especially with these ones up here, this is useful for, you can preset the parameters on them. So let's go ahead and listen to this little loop that I've got.
Yeah.
Okay, so it just about loops is a bit of a crackle, but again, this is just for the video, so it doesn't matter too much. So let's say I want filter. I don't want any res, I don't want any DRU, I think that's drive, I think that's supposed to be a V, and that's resonance. We don't want either of those, we just want the filter.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the sound that I want when I press the filter button.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's programmed in now, so I can come out of that, and let's say isolator, let's say I want no lows. I want to take all the lows out and just have the really kind of tinny sound to it. There we go, that's perfect. And then, let's say for an MFX, let's do 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have something like that. So now let's say I want to go in and do those as a performance, we can press those buttons in the knowledge that they're going to load the last thing that you programmed into them. So let's go through this and hopefully it works, otherwise I'm going to look like a bit of an idiot here. So 1, hold.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for filter first.
Yeah.
Okay, that worked, and then into isolator.
Yeah.
And now let's try that MFX 16.
Yeah.
So there you go, you could see that those parameters that I'd entered into them were all ready when I pressed those buttons. No need to touch the dials whatsoever. I could just safely press them in the knowledge that the last thing I'd programmed into those effects, that's the thing that it's going to do to that pad. So really, really useful for live performance, that one. You can set all those up before you play a track, and then you play the track, and you can apply the effects whenever you want. Okay, the next tip is auto trig level. Now, auto trig is really, really useful for recording in samples when you don't want dead space at the start. So what it does is it waits to hear a signal coming into the unit and then starts recording. So it's really good to get into the habit of using this one, otherwise you're constantly trimming dead space off the start of your samples. It's really easy to set up. You do function auto trig, and it goes from 0 to 9. That's basically the sensitivity of it. So depending on what you're recording, you may have to tweak this a little bit and see which works best. So I think I usually choose about 3 or 4. So I'm going to try 3. And to confirm that, you press record, you can see that's flashing. And then when you hit record, it will say ready. See how it says ready? So it's not actually recording yet, even though you've done the same key combination that you usually do to record. And now if I get a sample in here, it should auto detect the start of the sample coming into the unit and then start recording. So let's find a quick loop. Okay, you could see there it changed to record. You still have to manually turn it off. And if we listen to that sample now, there's literally no dead space at the start of that because it's detected when the sound has started coming into the unit. It's super, super handy this, and it saves you so much time when you're trimming samples. This is especially useful on drums as well. You won't have to trim that dead space off the start anymore. And here you go, you can see the example here. It's got it exactly at the start, so really, really useful stuff that. Okay, next up is a kind of Dilla little trick which I've covered before. It's taking sounds and copy and pasting them at different velocities so you can get more dynamics and more feel into your drums. So we've got 3 drum sounds here. Let's copy this hi-hat a few times. I'm going to have to remember how to do this. Yep, that's it. Okay, so we've got 3 hi-hats there, and let's change the velocity down. And you can hear that there's so much more dynamics going on than just this. If I'm using 3 different velocities of that hi-hat. And that'll really help you to get that more Dilla kind of feel into your beats. You can do it with the snares and kicks as well. You can get those ghost snares going as well. And when you're using the pattern sequencer, you can obviously program these in, and you can get a lot more dynamics in your beat. So that's a great way of doing that. There's no touch sensitivity on the SX or A unless you're using external MIDI. I think you can do it that way. So it has got the technology in there, but you can't do it physically with your fingers. It has to be by another device. So this is a great workaround for that. Just copy and paste those samples that you want to have a bit of dynamics on, and then use the start end level to lower the level down or increase it depending on what you want to do. Okay, moving on now. Adding noise to your beats is obviously something that we love doing, but a great tip is to put it on a pad instead of putting it over your sample, because when you come to mixing your beat or when you come to finishing up your beat, if you find that that noise is too much on your sample, you have to start all over again, and it's really, really annoying. So the best thing to do is to record some noise onto a pad, on its own pad, and then you can change the level of that to suit your needs. So I'm going to use MFX 16, and we're going to put some noise on. And the great thing when you're doing noise on its own is you can use the left-hand dial to kind of change the pitch of it as well. So if we put that on again, and I'll demonstrate using this left-hand dial. It's not the pitch, sorry, it's kind of like the muddiness of it. So you can get some really nice textures going on with this. And then what we're going to do is just record that directly to a pad. So we're going to do record, 12, record, and that should be enough. And obviously we just leave that on loop, we take gate off, and then we can also adjust the volume to suit what we want to do as well. So start, end, level, and that's much easier than having it on your sample and then being stuck with it. So that's a really, really good hack, that one. Okay, one of the flaws of this device is you don't really have much control over your loops. Let's say you wanted to add a pause. Luckily, there are a couple of workarounds for this, and it's using the MFX. Now, you can use DJFX Looper, or you can use the isolator for this. I'm going to go ahead and show you with both very quickly. So if we have this loop going,
Yeah.
and we want to have a pause in that, first of all, hit DJFX Looper, and again, we're going to set this up, and we're going to make sure that middle dial is going to 0.0. Doesn't really matter about the others. I'd probably say just make sure that's on off. This dial is completely irrelevant for this one, so it doesn't matter where that's pointing. So let's go ahead and take that off because we don't want the pause yet. And we've got to make sure that's at 0.0, which we already have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there you could see it was creating a pause in the beat. That's super, super handy. And you can do the same thing with isolator. All you have to do is turn all the dials all the way to the left. So they're basically all off. And because that means you're blocking all the frequencies, then there's going to be no sound. So it will have exactly the same effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with a little bit of timing and a little bit of tuning, you can get some really nice pauses in your beats. Okay, just before we go into the next one, guys, if you do want to support what I'm doing here, I'd really appreciate it if you could head to spvids.com and check out my sample packs. They're all lo-fi drums aimed especially for you guys to make lo-fi beats, make better lo-fi beats. They're all very reasonably priced. You get loads for your money, so I'd really appreciate if you could head to my website and check those out. There's a link in the description. Every pack I sell just keeps me doing this and keeps me alive, so I'd really appreciate if you could go and check that out. Right, on to the next point, repitching using the DJFX Looper. Now, we can't really repitch that much with the SP404SX. The built-in pitching is awful. It sounds terrible. One way you can do it quite well, it's a little bit quirky, but it does work, is using DJFX Looper again. So DJFX Looper is such a handy MFX on this device. And maybe we'll just use this loop that I recorded in before, actually. Okay, and what we're going to do is put DJFX Looper on. This is going to be off on the right-hand side. The middle one is where you're going to do the magic source. The left-hand dial here, you have to experiment with this because this can affect the sound of it, and you can kind of find a sweet spot with it. So we're going to change this third dial to 0.8. And then check this out. And you could see there I was just experimenting with this left-hand dial. That's going to make all the difference. You need to tweak that to find the sweet spot where it isn't doing too much to affect the actual sample. Now, this isn't perfect by any means, but it's a really, really good hack. You get a very, very quirky sound from it, which is kind of iconic in the SX world because this is basically all we've got. So yeah, this is the best way to do repitching, and it does give you a really interesting and quirky effect. So this is the original, and then repitched. So I hope that makes sense. Again, DJFX Looper to the rescue. What an amazing effect that is on this device. Okay, the next one is subsonic, using subsonic to make subs that you can use on your beats. So this is 23, MFX 23, so let's get to that. What you have to do is apply this to a sample. So let's use 4 again. And you're going to bring the balance right down or right up. I can't quite remember yet, so as we go along, I'll be able to work that one out. You want to bring the threshold right down. And I've put gate back on for this pad to make it a little bit easier. And you can hear now, because I brought that threshold right down, you have to have balance all the way turned up. Sorry, so correction from before. And then you've got the left-hand dial to do the pitch. So say we want that pitch. Now what you need to do is resample, record, and we're going to use pad 8. And then just hit pad 4 and hold it. And press record to stop the recording. Turn the MFX off on that pad, and I'm going to adjust the level of that a little bit. So that's really, really useful because there's no other way of creating bass lines on this device. You can do that and just have very simple sub bass lines. You could go to your heart's content and change the pitch multiple times and resample it if you wanted to do a full scale. But if you just want the classic kind of lo-fi hip-hop 1 or 2 notes underneath your beats, this is a really, really good way of doing that. So yeah, just use subsonic, resample the note to a pad, turn it off on the original sample. It has to be done on a sample for it to work. And then you've got a sub note. Really, really handy stuff there. Okay, nearly at the end now. This is the 9th tip. This is how you get perfect drum loops using Resample. Now, this is something that I get asked time and time again when I'm recording videos. How do I get my drum loops perfect every time? I've just kind of figured out this way of doing it. And what you have to do is time the end of the recording with the end of the drum loop. So if we go resample record, I'll do an example and hopefully you'll be able to see what I do and it will make sense. So I'm going to resample to 12. I'm going to tap out this really simple drum loop and then I'm going to hit record at the same time. And what I usually do actually is hit the pad that I'm resampling to finish the loop and record at the same time. That kind of keeps my timing in check. So I'll give you an example here of what I mean. Hit record again. So it's almost like you're hitting it on the first beat of the next bar. And if we listen to this back now, turn off gate and keep loop on. I can't even hear where I loop that because it's worked so perfectly. So I'll do it one more time to show you guys. Resample, record, record to 12, record. And you get that kick noise afterwards actually as well, and that kind of confirms that you've got it right in some ways. So let's have another listen to this. There we go, it's worked exactly again. I don't know why that works so well. It works for me every single time. Just instead of going for the first kick of the next bar, pretend the pad that you're resampling to is going to be the kick for the next bar. Press that and record at the same time. And as I showed you there, you just get perfect drum loops every single time, and it saves so much time than using the start end level to adjust the start and end points to get that perfect loop. It just seems to work so well. So yeah, give that one a try and hopefully it saves you some time as well. Okay, the 10th and final little hack, and I really, really like this one. This one's such a crazy hack, is that if you've got chops on your SP404SX, one of the downsides is we don't have mute groups. We kind of have to have gate on everything. And it's not quite got that smoothness, but if you're recording to an external unit, say you've got a little recorder or another SP, there is a way that you can get mute groups on this device, and it's using delete. Now this is such a crazy hack, I've covered it before on my channel. So firstly what you have to do is make sure all the pads that you want in the mute group, you need to have gate off. So let's go ahead and turn it all off on these. Okay, so 1 to 6, they've all got gate turned off. I'm not going to press them again now because otherwise they'll all trigger at the same time. Now hit delete. And obviously when you're in this mode, you do need to be careful. You don't want to do any sort of deleting of your samples. So make sure you're going to only ever press cancel after you've finished doing this. Here now, we've got a mute group. Listen to this. How crazy is that? And then to come out of it, obviously make sure you use cancel, don't use delete. That was just one of the wildest hacks on the SP, I think. Absolutely incredible stuff. So yeah, just quickly again, make sure all the chops have got gate turned off, hit delete, and you're good to do whatever you want. And yeah, when you've finished, obviously you don't want to delete any of these. It will delete the ones that you've got flash in here if you press delete, so just make sure you press cancel to come out of that. So there we go guys, 10 awesome hacks for the SX. I hope this video was useful. It was so good to get back on this device, and like I mentioned, these will work for the A as well, and probably most of the legacy models as well. Just give them a try. It's really cool to go back and do some classic SP Vids content. Really enjoyed this one. Please leave a thumbs up and a like if you like this video, and I'll be back with more content soon guys. Take it easy, keep making beats. Peace!